CGTN.
We're bringing you coverage now of the construction of China's Tiangong space station. The Shenzhou-14 crew have just completed an EVA, that's an extravehicular activity or spacewalk. Now, it's the crew's third since they arrived at the space station in June, but it is their first since the components of the station joined together to complete the T-shaped structure earlier this month. Well, let's bring in our reporter Sun Ye, who's at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Sun Ye, so talk us through how the EVA went today and what they did up there.
Hey there, Jiayang. Just as you said, Shenzhou-14 crew a little while ago have confirmed they have completed, and the ground control have declared complete success for this EVA activity. A little while ago, they also closed the door for the airlock cabin. I think you will also be seeing Liu Yang there. All of the three taikonauts are finishing up all the arrangement for the day. Now, before coming back into the airlock cabin and finishing all their assigned tasks for the day, the two taikonauts responsible for their assignment out of the China space station today, Chen Dong and Xuzhe, they both delivered speeches, and they were quite effusive, even though this is not the first time for any of them to conduct a spacewalk. Now, both of the two taikonauts, Chen Dong and Xuzhe, they said today is a dream come true for them, and they say they hope the next generation, their children, can come on board China's space station and see what they saw today, because it's been spectacular. They say China's space station is a platform and arena that can accommodate so much. And Liu Yang, I think you're seeing her now, and she said that classic phrase we've come to associate with her. She said, space exploration is limitless. Of course, this is, as you said, the seventh spacewalk for China's space station, the third for the Shenzhou-14 crew, and the very first one since China's space station assembly form that basic T-shaped configuration. And today's EVA activity involves something that can never happen without a T-shape configuration. One of the designers with China Space Station System told us one of the most important tasks today is installing something they called inter-module equipment. That inter-module equipment, which connects three modules and allow taikonauts to crawl or move on their own with that kind of equipment, effectively expanded their scope of activities, as much as doubling their scope of activities if they choose to move or crawl in this way. So that's one of the highlights for this EVA, and of course, this is the first spacewalk that come with the support of all three modules. So today, the electricity, the signals, the relays come from all three modules putting in together. So I think that partly explains why here at the Beijing Control today, we did also see the ground team become quite effusive after that successful EVA too. Jiayang.
Well, Sun Ye, thank you so much for updating us. That's our reporter at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Well, let's get some more details and some insight from Professor Yang Yuguang, who joins us here in the studio. He is with the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation and also the Vice Chair of the Space Transportation Committee of the International Astronautical Federation. Professor Yang, pleasure to have you here, as always. So we're hearing there from our reporter how this is a big, significant moment for the space station. And we're looking at some pictures now from the space cameras, I think, mounted outside the space station, I believe.
Yes.
Right, and so this is footage that we're getting from the China space station, and this is of the astronaut Liu Yang, who we saw earlier as well as inside in the support. So I want to get to ask you about some of the details of this space mission today. So our reporter is saying that this one aspect of it, something that couldn't have happened before, which is this the inter-module connection device.
Exactly.
So you know that today we already have the Wentian module, and you can see this on this screen. That's the two astronauts. This is a replay, and they go out of station from the main airlock, which is located in the Wentian module. So it's on one end of the Wentian module. The advantage is that it will not disturbance with disturbance of the and other things. You may still remember that before the arrival of the Wentian module, to conducting an EVA, we need to use the node of the Tianhe-1 at the airlock. The disadvantage is that if we use the node at the airlock, it will be isolate all the other parts of the station. So it is a little bit dangerous. The advantage of the Wentian module is that the airlock is on one end, so will not influence the other parts of the station. Still, the other parts are connected together as one body. But the disadvantage of this is that it is far from other parts of the station. You know that the EVA is very important, and in the future we will conducting more and more EVAs, and some of the operations are far from the airlock, and even in a different module. So if the astronauts go out of the station from this main airlock located on the Wentian module, usually in the future probably they will go to other modules. So it is very necessary for them to install this, what you mentioned, the inter-module device or the inter-module connection to help the astronauts to be more easily to go across the different modules. You know that just before the arrival of the Wentian and Mengtian module, and after they have connected to a T-shape, they are connected by the what we call the docking ports.
Right.
And the docking the APAS, the docking mechanism, but these are not designed for the moving of the astronauts.
There are 5 of these docking ports.
Yeah, exactly. Actually speaking, 3 docking ports and
the other
2 berthing ports. And the astronauts need to go from one module to another crossing these ports, but do not have any assistance. So with the installation of this inter-module device or connection, they will help the astronauts to go more easily move from one module to the other. So this is assistance, and you can also.
This is movement on the inside still, or is this still movement from
outside the station? You can recognize that as the device as the handle with one end on the node or the node of the Tianhe-1, and the other part is on the Wentian module. So you can see that the difficulty this time, the requirement of installing this device is raising a very high requirement on accuracy. So that is the reason why we say that.
We're looking at the footage from earlier at the EVA.
Yes.
And, so
from this replay, that's this moment the astronauts are still near the hatch. You can see the handles.
This is them just coming out.
Yes, just coming out. And with the aid of the robotic arm, Mr. Chen Dong, the commander, wearing the spacesuit with the blue belt, or the suit B.
Do they all have different colors? Is that how you're
yes,
able to recognize
different colors.
who's who?
And the suit with the yellow is worn by Mr. Xuzhe. So the Mr. Chen Dong will move with the assistance of the robotic arm. And another significance of today is that it is the first time that we help the moving of the astronauts with the combined arm. You know that we have a big arm and a small arm. The length of the big arm is 10 meters and the length of the small arm is 5 meters. But as I mentioned, you know that today the T-shape has already formed and the airlock, the hatch, is far from other parts. So we need a longer arm, and the combined arm is 15 meters long.
Is that, what's that they're moving right now?
What you see just now is the camera inside the hatch. And now on this photo we can see on the left of the screen is a camera mounted on the helmet of the astronauts. You can see the camera. Now you can see this video is the camera outside the cabin.
And what they're holding there, is that the parts of the device that they'll be.
Well, you know that as you already seen that Mr. Chen Dong stand on the top of the robotic arm, and the tools and also together with the device we mentioned will be brought by Mr. Chen Dong to the right position.
And the robotic arms as well, I mean, this is definitely a feature that we've talked a lot about when it comes to China's space station. The big and the small one, they work together to help each other. The small one, I assume, is also much more agile than the bigger one. to move. And so just talk to us a little bit more about these two arms. And is this something that we also see on, say, the International Space Station? Is something this is quite innovative to China Space Station?
Well, the design of our arm is quite different from that used on the International Space Station. You know that on the International Space Station, there are different arms made by European Space Agency and made by the Canadian Space Agency. But both the small arm and the big arm were made in China. On our Tiangong space station. And the significance of our arm is that, as I mentioned, the two arms can combine together to form a super long arm, 15 meters long. And the challenge today we talk about is the problem comes from, you cannot regard this robotic arm as a rigid body. It is elastic. It is flexible. So although the comparing with this maximum capability, the astronauts is relatively light, smaller than its maximum payload. You see that the big arm can afford the payload of more than 20 tons, and the small arm can have a capability more than 3 tons. But you see that to put an astronaut on the tip of this robotic arm also raises the requirement on accuracy. What we mentioned today, to installing the devices in different parts of the station, especially on different modules. As we mentioned, that the inter-module device, the one end is mounted on one module and the other end on another module. So the accuracy requirement is really high. So this also brings it very, very challenging for the operations of the astronauts. So the coordination also must have very high requirement for the astronauts.
So they're just standing, the astronauts who are on the arms, they're just standing on a tether. So the boots are tethered to this,
they are
and they
tethered,
can still
so
move
to
about.
keep their safety. But you see that Mr. Chen Dong is stand on the robotic arm, but Mr. Cai Xuzhe moved to the point by himself. So that's different.
How is he moving over there by himself?
By
He's
hands.
grabbing onto parts of the space station and moving along
crouching
like that.
and grasping the handles one by one.
It's hard to, I guess it's impossible for us to know right now who that is, whose hand that is.
You just need to see watch the belt on their suit. As I mentioned, the blue suit is worn by Mr. Chen Dong, and Mr. Cai Xuzhe wears the spacesuit with the yellow belt.
So I understand that they're also installing something to the robotic arm today. That's also part of it, right? The little extra booster handle?
Quite right. Actually speaking, this handle is installed on the small arm. You see that we also have the requirement to move along the arm itself. So we need the handles, as you mentioned, to have the safe belt.
That's how they move along, right? By moving,
exactly, quite right. Just like the video now. So because you know that because they are in the microgravity environment, if we don't have a safe belt, that will be very, very dangerous for the astronauts. And they will float away. Now you can see they've already entered the shadow area without the sunlight. So they need the light on the helmet of their spacesuit.
What is that either Chen Dong or Cai Xuzhe is holding there? Do you see?
The tools. The tools,
that was the tools
they need. And also they're not only installing the equipments along on the surface of the station, but also they will adjust some toolkit for the station for the convenience of the other crews in the future to be more convenient in their operations.
I mean, we're looking at some great images, from the space station itself, and I know that's another part of their mission today. They were lifting the panoramic camera that's installed on the outside, right?
Exactly. So this is the second task today. You see that because of the limit of the size of the payload ferry.
Sorry, may I just interrupt you quickly? So that's the robotic arm that we're seeing there on the left.
Exactly.
Right? That was the big and the small one. That was the small one.
Connected together.
Okay,
you see that for the connection of the big arm and the small arm, we need an adapter. And this adapter was installed to the surface of the station by the Shenzhou-14 crew. So you see that you can also recognize the operation today as a preparation for the future crew.
Right. And they'll be coming at the end of this year, sometimes scheduled to be
this is also another video from the camera mounted on the spacesuit. So you can see they must have one hand grasping the handle and with the other hand to conducting the operations.
Sorry, so we were earlier talking about the panoramic camera, and Professor Yang was just telling us about that. But is there a reason for having to lift the camera?
Yes, they need to raise the position of the camera because they want to have a better view. You see that during the launch, because of the limitation of the size of the payload fairing, so the panoramic camera is in lower precision. So that means that much of the field of view of the camera were blocked by the fuselage of the station itself. Right. So raising the position of the panoramic camera, it can optimize the field of view to have a better field of view and for monitoring the situation outside the station. So that is also been done. We can still remember been done by the Shenzhou-14 crew and the Shenzhou-13 crew, either reading the panoramic camera on the Tianhe 1 core module and on this Wentian module. And I believe that in future they will also need to raise the camera in the Mengtian module because there are also panoramic camera on the Mengtian module.
So we can expect to see some even more fantastic images from the space station in due course. So this spacewalk, it was scheduled, we all thought it was scheduled to last 6.5 hours, but they actually completed it in under 6 hours.
Quite right. So they conducted their task today really smoothly. This shows that they are practiced very, very hard on the ground and conducting so many training. So that is the reason why they can accomplish their task today so fast. And moreover, you see that there were also other operations during their EVA. You see that we must stop the rotation of the solar panels because that will be a little bit dangerous for the astronauts if it is still continue moving. And because of this, the limitation of the electricity is also a very, very, very important consideration because you know that the solar panels have stopped rotating and we do not have the most optimized direction to the sun. So we, in many cases, we need to use the battery, the storage battery, to provide the electricity needed for the operation of the whole station. So in this case, that is the reason why we choose a certain day when even we stop the rotation of the solar panels, but still we can get a certain amount of electricity. And you see also, you know that the communication is very important. From the previous screen, you can also see that the ground staff is monitoring the whole procedure. Right. And Ms. Liu Yang is also monitoring the whole procedure. So the videos, all these videos from multiple cameras were sent to the ground station, to the control center by our Tianhe data relay satellite.
We're seeing there at the bottom right.
Exactly.
Panel, right?
So you can see Ms. Huang Weifen is a chief designer of the astronaut system, is now monitoring the whole process.
So then 6 hours, is this also a consideration as well, given you know what you're saying about the limited power as well, having to shut down the solar panel? I mean, 6 hours is sort of a standard amount of time for an EVA. The last one they did, I think, was 4 hours.
Well, there are multiple considerations and restraints. You see that the maximum operation time for the EVA spacesuit is 8 hours. So they can work 8 hours. So we still have a designed margin. So the designed operation today is 6.5 hours. But we can do that. If we do that smoothly, it can be shorter. But if we meet some problem, it can be a little bit longer. So that's the reason, one of the restraints that we consider the operation today. But also, as we have already discussed, the direction of the sunlight. And
that's a solar panel that we're seeing there.
Exactly. So you can see that it is still. It does not move.
So normally, in normal circumstances, it would be rotating just to
yes,
wherever.
According to the movements of the direction of the sunlight.
So 8 hours is the maximum capacity on these Chinese EVA suits.
No, as I mentioned, the maximum is 8 hours.
8 hours, right?
Yes.
So 8 hours on the Chinese ones, and that's is that Chen Dong waving there at us?
This is Mr. Cai.
That's Mr. Cai, right? He's going back into the air
with a yellow suit, with a yellow belt.
What's the longest EVA that's possible, just globally?
The world record is made by a female astronaut and male astronauts more than 8 hours.
Oh wow!
More than 8 hours.
So I mean, this, we talked about this before. I mean, this is definitely not a walk in the park in any way. I mean, these EVA suits are hundreds of kilos in weight, right? I mean, that's
it
not
is
the
more
issue.
than 100 kilograms.
Right.
So it is very heavy. So you will feel very difficult to move even you are on the ground. So this in this microgravity environment, it will be even more difficult because to the greater extent you only depends on your arms. So you cannot move depends on your legs. So that is the difficulty. So why we raise a very high requirement to the strength of your arms. So even our female astronauts, you know that during their training on the ground, they must keep exercise and
Upper
make
body
their
strength.
arms more stronger than before.
And that's something that the exercise routine that they obviously have to keep up whilst they're in the
Quite
space
right.
station as well. And Miss Liu Yang being in the station and giving this important support work, what sort of work does that entail? I mean, her role
You know
is
that, as I
critical
mentioned,
too.
there are multiple cameras not only mounted on the surface of the station, like we mentioned the panoramic camera, but we also have the cameras mounted on the helmet of the astronauts.
Yeah.
So with all these cameras, we can have different video streams, and the astronauts inside the station can monitor their actions. And you see that there are a lot of fragile things on the surface of the station. So the astronauts, when they conducting the EVA, they should avoid collision with these kind of things. So the astronauts inside the station, Miss Liu Yan can also help the astronaut outside to avoid these kind of collision. So that is very important. And also with her help, and they can conducting their operations more easily. Not only Miss Liu Yang, but also the ground team are also do the similar things. And not only the monitoring their operations, but they are also monitoring the parameters of their spacesuit. You see that we have the telemetry system which can brought the critical parameters of their spacesuit to the Tianhe data relay satellite and then to the ground station. With this measure, hundreds of parameters were monitored by the ground team. If anything wrong happened to their very, very complex spacesuit, they can stop their operation as fast as possible and go back to the station.
All right. Well, Professor Yang, we do want to continue chatting with you, but just stay with us for a moment. We do have some news coming in now. Chinese President